same-sex marriage. Now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. I have always fought for the same values and principles.
I want to remind people, I mean, as time goes by and all these hill trolls do nothing but talk about Trump, because they know that they can, right? Because Trump is such an idiot. But you're not going to take that and turn it into a weapon against America. The American people are not going to forget what an amazing job Bernie did and that he should have won. And they're not going to forget that in 2020 we're going to do it all over again. And I don't think we're going to lose next time, even with all your bullshit. How we do it? Well, we got 3 years to plan. We'll figure out a way to beat you. But what I'm trying to remind people of is why Bernie did so well. And it's because of things like this. Philip Lapkovich shared a link. Hillary Clinton's corporate donors revealed it's not pretty. Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign is in full. I mean, I'm going through old posts in We the People, one of my groups. Going way back. This is from October 25th, 2015. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning, and you'll see that the group was called Shillery. Scourge of the fake Democratic Party.
Farron, now be careful on this next story, because every time we talk about Hillary Clinton, the Podesta crowd starts inundating us with emails and how dare you talk about the front runner. Well, let's be clear. Ring of Fire is not a Democratic voice. It's not a Republican voice. It is very, very independent. It will call the strikes. It will call the balls. This just tells the story. Hedge fund titans are giving Hillary Clinton more money than the very top Republican contenders. What is your take on this story?
It's very sad. I mean, you know, Hillary Clinton is pulling in more money from these people who caused the economic meltdown. These people who, according to author Leslie Uphold, are capable of making $1 million an hour for producing absolutely nothing of value for the economy, have chosen Hillary Clinton as their preferred candidate in the 2016 election, more than Jeb Bush, more than Rubio, more than Fiorina. The bulk of this money is now going to Hillary Clinton. And what's interesting is that you have these Hillary Clinton, I guess you have to call them apologists. After it was announced that she pulled in tens of millions of dollars a couple weeks ago, they take to Facebook, and these are well-respected authors and journalists, saying Hillary Clinton raised this money and it came from the people, it came from small donations. But now that her donor list has been revealed, we see that that is not even close to being reality. It's coming from hedge funds.
Well, we're going to post it on this story. We'll post the...
See, I mean, people forget, right? People forget that, you know, whether it's her or her campaign or her trolls, that they lied. They lied and lied and lied their ass off to people who are gullible to get them to vote for them. They couldn't get a single vote if they didn't lie. Not one vote. Hillary would have been 25 million to 0 votes is what it would have been. Because Bernie, I heard him over and over again say he got 13 million, And I heard Hillary over and over again say she got 12. Oh, gee, doesn't that mean that Bernie won the popular vote? I mean, that's all I hear out of Hill trolls these days is, oh, Hillary won the popular vote. She didn't win it in the states that she lost, that caused her to lose the election and put Nightmare in office. You know, and if you're so upset about the popular vote, then let's give Bernie the election and do over the national election and see who wins between Bernie and Trump, huh? You guys just don't get it, man. Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
The list here on this story, but why do the Hillary Clinton people believe that they can just say that that's not so, and it's just and we're supposed to believe that this is just money coming from the average Joe? I mean, the numbers say this. I mean, is the thought that the American voters are just so disconnected and so stupid that nobody's going to look? Because I remember when we did our first story, we had all these people coming in sending us, oh, gee whiz, this money is coming from the people. And we got dozens of those emails. We knew it was a lie. All we had to do was go to a couple of sites.
I don't know why the Hill trolls even bother trying to play games with this guy. This guy isn't Cenk Uygur. You can't buy him. He ended up going to RT. I watch him over on RT whenever it's kind of hard to catch him because they only run this program once or twice after he does it. But he's on every week on Russian Television International. I would strongly either that or go and I can't believe I'm not subscribed to Ring of Fire. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you are subscribed. It doesn't seem to tell you. Of course, I have a couple of different YouTube accounts to keep my stuff separate. But, you know, PAP is great. Used to have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on here a lot. Is great. The reason I've never agreed with a lot of progressives on the vaccine issue is because Robert F. Kennedy uncovered a lot of maybe not proof, but for sure suggesting that vaccines with mercury in them, the ones like the flu vaccine and stuff, puts mercury in it, which is the second most toxic substance on the planet. I mean, remember when somebody would break a thermometer and it was like a toxic spill and you had to, I mean, this is back when I was a kid. They don't have mercury in them anymore, I don't think. And, you know, it was like a toxic spill. And yet, us kids, we would play with mercury. You know, it's so much fun. It's a beautiful liquid. I mean, let's
issue. Bill Clinton.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you. I just wanted to type in play with mercury. Now, I wouldn't advise you getting it on your hand like this guy's doing right here, but
here's a little info on mercury toxicity. The mercury I am handling in my videos is elemental mercury. This is not absorbed by the skin. While other compounds that are used in industrial appliances can be readily absorbed by the skin, and even a tiny drop can lead to a very painful death within weeks. However, as I said, this is elemental mercury and it's not absorbed by the skin.
So would you do it just because she says it's not absorbed? I wonder if she's still alive. Well, we used to play with it, but we would never touch it. Okay, so there's your mercury. On the other hand, even more toxic than non-elemental mercury is Hillary Clinton. You know, she gave us Mr. Trump. Ronnie Rump, as I like to call him, a reference to Ronald Reagan. Before, I don't know who's more dangerous. I mean, the Republicans are all dangerous. But we can't beat them unless we run some guy like a progressive against them. It doesn't have to be Bernie. I like Bernie. I don't like the fact that he's caucusing with Democrats, working with Democrats. I mean, I don't mind the working with them, but to endorse Hillary, you know, after all the things that he said about her, how can he endorse her? And it's just like, okay, I have this theory, and that's that she'd be better than Rump. Well, maybe, maybe not. I mean, Rump's not turning out to be all that bad. I mean, yeah, just like Obama, because of the color of his skin, he caused us to look a little harder at racism, but on the whole, he didn't do jack shit. And you know, there was more black people gunned down in the streets and less done about it under Obama than there would have been under Bush or somebody. At least Bush would have felt like he had to save face, do something, right? But they keep it quiet, right? So that they don't have to do anything about it. Anyway, the donor situation there, that was pretty bad. And
of the United States of America.
No,
but
not
it's
at all.
going to be more of the same, and that's the problem. We don't need more of the same. We need something radical. We need something different, something better. We can't just settle for the status quo all the time and say, you know what, this is fine. This is good enough. I'm tired of good enough. Let's get better.
It's like Richard Eskow said. The average, what you have is you have these Wall Street titans trying to convince the American public that we really can't change anything. That the best we can do is tinker at the top, maybe change a few things, and that we simply have to, rather than looking for perfect, rather than for looking for better, we simply have to take the status quo. We have to live with it. Hopefully they're going to tinker at the top a little bit. They're going to meet in closed rooms and maybe take care of the middle class, maybe take care of the poor of this country, maybe worry about the environment, education, Social Security, a military that's out of control. Maybe they're going to do that. So we have to put them in office. Hopefully they'll do that. And so there's no question, if Hillary's the person, that obviously every progressive in the country is going to jump behind her. But progressives right now are saying, why should we do that now when we know we can do better with a person like Bernie? When Bernie has a chance to win, let's go ahead and jump behind that chance.
yeah, but the thing about it is if she had won, she'd have been in control of everything. So she would have been able to make everything look great for her. As president, she would have had all this power. Nobody could go after her in any way. Of course, by not becoming president, nobody goes after her because nobody cares anymore. But she would have been able to rewrite history. She would have had an opportunity to pull all those people back to her who went to Bernie, especially after screwing Bernie and getting Bernie to endorse her and run. You know, it didn't work out. I mean, Bernie's stumping for her, you know, telling people to back her didn't work. I mean, look what happened. I mean, the election is proof, right? And besides that, Bernie went from having 25, 35, 40,000 people show up for his speeches to like zero. I mean, it was awful for Bernie. And as soon as Bernie stopped doing all these stupid things, he got his crowd back. All of a sudden his crowd was back. God, the capitalist system is just fucking annoying. These people call me. Jesus. They just call over and over and over again trying to get you to give them money. You know? Anyway, so what I was trying to say was Bernie, was much better off afterwards. But the main point is that Bernie was an example. Bernie showed us how great the revolution is, right? How strong it is. I mean, it was like under the skin, right? Until Bernie came along. I mean, we're trying to figure out a way to start the revolution, right? And we went after Elizabeth Warren. That would have been a mistake, I think. I don't think she's a Bernie Sanders. I mean, I think there are a lot of Bernie Sanders out there. Young people. I think any of these people would work like, go to my reboot candidates, Democratic Party headquarters reboot candidates, and look at them. I can't remember their names. I'm too busy, and if you don't use a name over and over again, you forget it. But there's all kinds of them. Maybe not as good as Bernie. Maybe they don't have the experience. Maybe they don't have the history. Some of them do, though, of fighting the good fight, of demonstrating, getting arrested, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm scared to death of the police. You won't catch me getting arrested ever. I may demonstrate, but I'll be out of there just as soon as the police show up. So, I mean, it takes all kinds, right? I do my thing, and I try and be clever, and they do their thing, and they end up in jail. But there's all kinds of good. So, again, here's my point, and I think that this is, like, enormously important. I think it was enormously important that we kept Hillary out of the White House. Now, I'm going to just tell everybody to shut up when they start screaming at me about Trump and about how Hillary wouldn't have been so bad. Well, listen to what these guys just said, and listen to me, because I think that if Hillary had gotten in, I don't think we would have won in 2020. We're going to win in 2020. I hope to God we see the first progressive Democrat in office since Jimmy Carter. And forever, as far as I know, except for maybe FDR, right? I mean, that's our record. We had FDR and Jimmy Carter. Everybody likes to jump up and down about John F. Kennedy, but he wasn't a real progressive. Not on paper, he wasn't. He talked a good talk, but the only reason he fought with the establishment was because they got into a fight. He got into a huge fight with the Dulles brothers and the Harrimans and the Nixons and all of them. And then he started like doing things as president, like getting rid of the tax or putting a tax on oil people. Oil people were threatening to kill him down in Texas. I forget their names off the top of my head, and as far as I'm concerned, from my studies, Murchison, the CIA, and the military got together and assassinated him. And they assassinated him because he had played ball all along, and then all of a sudden he realized the hatred that was on the other side and the deviousness. I mean, they forced him to have Allen Dulles. Dulles was like, he's like the, if not the devil, like one of his lieutenants or something, or his vice president or whatever. I mean, so I mean, I love Kennedys. They're nice people. They all seem to be on the right side, but they're not fighters. And when they do become fighters, they end up dead. I mean, I'm sure all of them have been assassinated. I'm sure that not one Kennedy killing has been some kind of lone wolf or any of that. There's just, if it was, then it wouldn't be all of them. All of them and none of their enemies, huh? The Bushes all unscathed, the Nixons all unscathed, but just Kennedys just drop like flies, right? It's just, and it must be because America hates them, right? I mean, America loved the Kennedys, except for a few people, and I know that they weren't just like murdered by lone wolf killers and stuff. So my point is that we didn't have very many progressives throughout history, and what few we had, I'm sure the conservatives did everything they could to control them and damage control, and then they got back into power right afterwards. And Truman was not a Democrat. He's a Republican that pretends to be a Democrat. Lyndon B. Johnson was not a Democrat, unless you want to say that he was like a Republican Democrat, like a conservative Democrat, Southern blue dog type Democrat. They're not really Democrats. I've said this over and over again. We have to change the way we do our parties. You cannot be in a party if you do not support its platform, if you do not support its agenda and its ideals. We need to make it so that you're not allowed to be in a party, and you're not allowed to run as a Democrat if you're not going to vote that way, if you're not going to support the party platform and all that stuff. So and as far as I'm concerned, it's like I say, they've taken away by putting their own people like Clintons and the Obamas in power in the Democratic Party, or making them win the elections. They've taken away our power completely. I mean, we've just never had any power. I mean, Carter was, I mean, I love him to death, but he was useless. They wouldn't let him do anything. They even sabotaged one of the helicopters when he tried to send troops in to rescue the hostages. It was like the only violent thing that he ever tried to do, and they didn't let him do it. And you can call me a conspiracy theory, but man, when two helicopters are going in to rescue hostages that the Republicans are depending on them not being rescued in order to win the election, for Nixon to win the election, or Bush, I'm sorry. And no, it was, I mean, Reagan. So, and the helicopter goes down? Oh, come on, man. Americans fly helicopters in the desert, and then it wasn't even desert. I mean, Iran isn't one big desert. All the time. They fly them all the time. And so, this time it fails? No. Either the guys that were going in were bought off, or somebody sabotaged it. But either way, they fucked Carter, and they fucked us. And they fuck us all the time. That's all, get out your Vaseline, people, because it's going to continue to hurt until we get a progressive. And we have to do that by keeping Democratic Party from cheating. The fake Democratic Party, the DNC, all these people who voted for the $700 billion in defense spending that Trump put out there. Feinstein, Schumer, the same, what do you call it? Anyway, it's the same Democrats, the same asshole Democrats are doing it. They all have to go. Pelosi, all of them have to go. I mean, Pelosi and them voted for torture. All of them have to go. And the only way to do that is to keep them from getting in. So, and it worked. I know it's horrible having to live through Trump, but it's better than, at least we showed them. We showed them that if you don't give us back our party, we'll sabotage you over and over and over again. And that's what we have to do. We have to continue this. Every time they sabotage our candidates, we have to sabotage them and let the fucking Republicans win. This is a war, man. We have to prove that we have teeth. We can't win if we're a bunch of pussies, okay? We have to prove that we're strong. And we have to prove that we're strong enough to fight. And when we torpedoed Hillary, that was proof that we're here to fight, that we can fight, and we can do things. I mean, that's the whole problem, right? Is to them, they're like, they can't do anything. They can't do anything. They can run their candidate and cause a lot of trouble, but in the end, we'll cheat them out of it. And they can't do anything. Well, guess what? We can do something. We can make the Republicans win. And I know in the end we haven't really done anything, because Republicans, establishment Democrats, they're all the same thing, right? So we keep Hillary out of the White House and Republican wins, they win, right? They win anyway. They get their defense spending, they get their oil money, they get everything that they want, right? Well, that's not really true, though. We did show that we can sabotage them, and we will show them next time. We will start winning. We're already winning. There's a quiet little revolution going on. There's a whole bunch of progressives winning. They're winning elections. Okay, it wasn't the presidency. We couldn't get Bernie in there, but we're winning in a lot of places, and we'll win more and more and more. And eventually, we will take back the Democratic Party, and we won't be the ones at that point making it hard for them. And if anybody's, I mean, we don't have to turn the table on them. We don't have to tilt the playing field. But we can. If we win the presidency, if we win become the leadership of the Democratic Party and run them out and run their DNC, I don't think that I want to. I think if we win, I want to create a new DNC, something called something else. The DNC just has this history of being bought. And I think we want to start that. I mean, I don't want to lose the name Democratic, because we're Democrats. But DNC, Or maybe we'll just take over the DNC and we'll run it right, you know, instead of trying to cheat. And that's got to be, yeah, we've got to do it that way. We've got to do things right. You know, we talk about it all the time. Well, let's not hedge anywhere. So we'll take over the DNC and we'll get rid of all these assholes who are running it right now and have our own people in, and we'll change the way the DNC works. We'll change it so that the DNC has to follow certain rules, and we'll change it so that people aren't appointed. I mean, there's all kinds of problems with the DNC. I've only just started studying the DNC, but I can tell you right now, the fundamental problem with the DNC is the people who get in on top, and I don't even know how they get in because they're not elected. I guess the president picks them, and well, there are some kind of fake elections going on, from what I understand, but they're not real elections. So we'll have real elections to put the people in the DNC, and we'll, just like all of our elections, we'll educate everybody and let them make the decision. But what happens is once the leadership is in the DNC, they pick all the state committees. They pick them. They pick them. They pick the superdelegates. They pick the delegates. I mean, they do everything. Well, we're going to have to put an end to all that. Just because it worked so well for establishment Democrats to cheat us out of our party doesn't mean that we do the same thing. We won't do the same thing. We'll change it, and we'll make it so they can't change it back if they ever... Because they're going to constantly try and get that wedge in there and just twist and turn, and they're going to constantly try to change the system back to where they can cheat, you know. So we have to stop that. So we will put an end to all of that. And the first thing that we'll do is what we've been doing, and that's torpedo their candidates. I mean, yes, I have a meme that is perfect for this. Tells you what. It's a girl with a big beer in two hands, and she says, "I'm totally depressed that Trump is president, but I'm totally stoked that Hillary didn't get in the White House." And that's exactly how you all should feel. I mean, yeah, we don't like Trump, and we don't by any means support him, but I would vote for him if I had to keep her out of the White House. Now, I didn't vote for him, because I didn't have to. I'm in Kentucky, and I was like, well, Trump is going to win Kentucky hands down. I don't even have to worry about it. So I just didn't vote. But not voting was, you know, I'm sure that the Hill Trolls just, you didn't vote for Hillary, you let Trump win. It's your fault that Trump won. Oh, crybabies. Just fuck off. That's such a bullshit. There's no logic to that. There's no reason to that. We have to fight, and that's how we fight. And hopefully we won't have to fight that long, because after keeping them out of office, that gives us time, to do our thing.
You know, I've seen a lot of comments on some of the things that we post on Facebook. You know, yes, I support Bernie, but if Clinton gets it, I'll vote for her, because the argument is the lesser of two evils. And I saw people say the same thing with Bush versus Kerry, regardless of which side they chose. They said, well, it was really a lesser of two evils. People said that about Obama and McCain, and Obama and Romney. Let's move past this lesser of two evils candidates and find somebody that we can really get excited about, somebody who's got great ideas, wants to implement them for real and not just talk about it.
This hedge fund story tells us a lot.
So a lot of them agree with me, right? I mean, a lot of people out there agree with me, and I think this is going to work. You know, have a little faith in me. I'm a pretty successful guy. You know, everything I do, sure, I have a learning curve. Maybe a little bit weaker than other people's. It takes me a while. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I know. I knew, I had a couple of groups, and I'll have to go there and talk about them, because, let's just look for a second. I had, next time, or in a little bit, I'll look them up and I'll come back.
The gold standard. Now suddenly last week you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. I have always fought for the same values and principles.
State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
I have not supported same-sex marriage. I have supported civil partnerships and contractual relationships.
I support marriage for lesbian and gay couples. I support it personally and as a matter of policy and law.
So you're saying your opinion on gay marriage changed, or you changed your mind?
I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words and playing with what is such an
I'm just trying to clarify
issue.
So I can understand.
No, I don't think you are trying to clarify. I think you're trying to say that, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong. So let me just state what I feel like you are implying and repudiate it. I have a strong record. I have a great commitment to this issue, and I am proud of what I've done and the progress we're making.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what I was saying. No, I was saying that you maybe really believe this all along, but, believe in gay marriage all along, but felt for political reasons America wasn't ready yet and you couldn't say it. That's what I was thinking.
No, that is not true.
It really is great how long you've supported gay marriage.
Yes.
I could have supported it sooner. Well, you did it pretty soon. Could have been sooner.
Fair point.
Have you ever tried going really, really, really far back in a group's posts, or even on your timeline? Ever tried to go all the way back to the beginning of your timeline? Like it would show where you first joined Facebook, I guess. And for groups, it's even more interesting, I think, because like this group, We the People, it was originally called Hillary, the scourge of the Democratic Party. And for you people who scoff at the idea that I invented the name Hillary, well, that goes all the way back to when I was arguing in what was it? I think it was Yahoo, and it may even still exist. It's like there are forums, and there's about 6 political forums, and it's hard to even get on them, or it used to be. And back then, I believed in establishment Democrats. Yeah, I was a fool, just like a lot of people still are, thinking that they were going to actually try to change things. When we gave them 2 chances, right? Clinton, 82 or 92 2000, and then Obama. We got them their shot, and they proved to everybody what they really are. So, you know, I'm going back through these old posts, and I've gotten a long way back. I'm back to October 31st, 2015. And a guy who's named Terry James is posting a lot. It's funny, he's not my friend anymore for some reason. Or maybe I never did friend him. But let's see what some of the posts say. Hillary Clinton helped sell weapons to hostile nations to enrich defense funders. So this was off of Ring of Fire. I guess they didn't have a video. It said, while Republicans have been distracted by phony scandals surrounding Hillary Clinton like Benghazi, they missed one of the dirtiest scandals ever to emerge involving the former First Lady and current frontrunner for the Democratic nomination in 2016. A damning new report from the International Business Times explains how Hillary Clinton used her position as Secretary of State to create a pay-to-play atmosphere for world leaders seeking military equipment and defense contractors looking to make a few extra billions. Here was what the IBT report uncovered. The value of these sales to these countries were double the value of those approved by the Bush administration over the same period of time. Total sales topped $151 billion that gave to the Clinton Foundation a 143% increase for those countries over what they got during the Bush years. Here is an example of how pay-to-play scam worked. Saudi Arabia wanted F-15 fighter jets, which they received after making a $900,000 donation to the Clinton Foundation. Clinton personally approved that deal. So you can see, even before the New York Times made their article, which, I mean, you have to think it was hardly groundbreaking, right? Because people on the internet, people with...
Hillary Clinton helped sell weapons to hostile nations to enrich defense funders by Pharaoh Cousins. May 28, 2015. Share on Facebook. Tweet on Twitter. While Republicans have been distracted by phony scandals surrounding Hillary Clinton like Benghazi, they missed one of the dirtiest scandals ever to emerge involving the former First Lady and current frontrunner for the Democratic nomination in 2016. A damning new report from the International Business Times explains how Hillary Clinton used her position as Secretary of State to create a pay-to-play atmosphere for world leaders seeking military equipment and defense contractors looking to make a few extra billions. Here is what the IBT report uncovered. The value of these sales to these countries were double the value of those approved by the Bush administration over the same period of time. Total sales topped $151 billion. Countries that gave to the Clinton Foundation. The 143% increase for those countries over what they got during the Bush years. Here is an example of how the pay-to-play scam worked. Saudi Arabia wanted F-15 fighter jets, which they received after making a $900,000 donation to the Clinton Foundation. Clinton personally approved that deal. This happened after Hillary complained about the country continuing to ignore the money that was flowing from Saudi Arabia to terrorist organizations. In short, she knew that the country was funding terrorists who were fighting American soldiers, and still was willing to sell them heavy artillery because they gave her group money. These countries that were receiving sweetheart deals from Clinton were violating human rights left and right, and that's according to information that the State Department had. Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait. All of these countries had been singled out by the State Department for things like corruption, violation of civil liberties, and violently retaliating against political opponents. But Hillary looked past all of these atrocities when she gave them massive weaponry. Algeria had been singled out as allowing arbitrary killing in the country and for having what they called widespread corruption. But after a $500,000 donation to the Clinton Foundation, they received a 70% increase in military weapon imports that included toxicological agents, biological agents, chemical agents. During her time at the State Department, Hillary approved $2.7 billion to the country of Algeria, which is almost triple what the Bush administration had sold to them in their last few years in office. Algeria had been put on watch by Hillary's State Department for abuses such as human trafficking, their practicing of disappearing political and social dissidents, and for allowing violent criminals to kidnap, rape, and terrorize citizens in areas of the country without actively trying to stop them. But when you're giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Secretary of State's charity, those egregious human rights abuses can be swept under the rug to make room for your new shipment of chemical weapons. Legally, these countries are not allowed to make political donations to U.S. politicians if they are seeking arms deals from the government, but there is no law that prevents them from making charitable donations. And that's how they were legally able to bribe Hillary Clinton. National security experts even came forward at the time and said that these donations represented a very serious conflict of interest. Their warnings went unheeded. But the real winner in all of this was the defense industry. At the same time that Clinton was approving massive arms deals to hostile countries, Bill Clinton was making the rounds on the speaking circuit, being paid as much as $625,000 for each event. These events were sponsored by companies like Boeing, General Electric, and Lockheed Martin. At one event, MSNBC hosts Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough served as the MCs of the event, while their employer, General Electric, reaped huge benefits from Hillary's deals with these countries. Another great example is when Goldman Sachs paid Bill $200,000 to speak at an event at the same time that they owned a part of defense contractor Hawker Beechcraft, who received a $675 million deal less than 2 months after Bill's speech. This story expertly defines who Hillary Clinton really is, and who she looks after when in a position of power. America cannot afford another defense industry hack as president. We're still picking up the pieces from W's destruction.
We're actually posting these things long before, and people like Terry James were picking up on it and posting them to my group. And Darlene Cochran Doggett. I don't know why these people aren't friends of mine anymore. Seems like they should be. They must have gotten upset about something. A lot of people believe that I was a Trump supporter just because I would have voted for him to keep Hillary out of the White House. I don't know what their problem is. And then again, maybe I unfriended them because something I didn't like. I mean, there was plenty of people who pissed me off. Some of the stuff that they had to say, or sometimes people like this, like maybe they posted too much to... Honestly, why do they sometimes even bother Facebook putting that up? So when you get this far down in the post, the web pages start to lock up a little bit. So Darlene said, thanks for this. Husband was defending her this morning. Now I don't have to call a divorce attorney. That's pretty funny, Darlene. I believe probably a lot of divorces are caused by difference of opinion. And I'll tell you what, whenever there's a difference of opinion, somebody's wrong and somebody's right. If somebody isn't wrong and somebody isn't, if somebody isn't wrong or right, then you're talking about two different things. Because any argument can be broken down into pieces. And then you can say, well, you're right about this one, I'm right about this one, you're right about this one, I'm right about this one, and kind of break it down, right? People get bogged down in the gray areas, but I'll remind you of my philosophy is that there's no such thing as gray. Ever looked at a newspaper under a magnifying glass? Ever looked at a picture in a newspaper under a magnifying glass? And it looks like there's gray areas. Well, if you look at it under a magnifying glass, what you find out is what it is a whole bunch of black dots on a white background. And depending on the percentage of white dots, like say or black dots, say per inch, you get what appears to your eye. It's an illusion, but for all intents and purposes it's real too, but is shades of gray, right? And that's how you make a picture, or that's how they make a picture. Well, so you're really not looking at gray. What you're looking at is percentages of black and white. Well, the same thing with arguments. If you get into an argument that you say is a gray area, it's not really a gray area. What it is a bunch of points that are either wrong or right. And so if it seems like dark gray, then chances are it's wrong, right? Because more of the points that you're arguing with the person, they're wrong on. It's complicated, but it's simple, as are most things. So when you get into a big argument with somebody, and they say, I'm right about this, well, and you say, I'm right about that, and therefore I'm right about the whole argument. Really, you got to break it down to those different points. And sometimes, especially when you're arguing with neocons and now neoliberals, because they both do the same thing, you get points where they're right, but it's irrelevant to the argument you're having, So it says here, and this is one I posted, the Clinton Foundation only spent 10% on charity in 2013.
In 2013, The Clinton Foundation only spent 10% of its budget on charitable grants. Hillary Clinton's nonprofit spent more on office supplies and rent than it did on charitable grants. April 27, 2015 by Sean Davis. After a week of being attacked for shady bookkeeping and questionable expenditures, the Clinton Foundation is fighting back. In a tweet posted last week, the Clinton Foundation claimed that 88% of its expenditures went directly to the foundation's life-changing work. More than 88% of our expenditures go directly to our life-changing work. http://wjcf.co/1b1djmr 3:30 p.m. April 25, 2015. There's only one problem. That claim is demonstrably false. And it is false not according to some partisan spin on the numbers, but because the organization's own tax filings contradict the claim. Clinton Foundation 2013 breakdown. In order for the 88% claim to be even remotely close to the truth, the words directly and life-changing have to mean something other than directly and life-changing. For example, the Clinton Foundation spent nearly $8.5 million percent of all 2013 expenditures on travel. Do plane tickets and hotel accommodations directly change lives? Nearly $4.8 million percent of all expenditures was spent on office supplies. Are ink cartridges and staplers life-changing commodities? Those two categories alone comprise over 15% of all Clinton Foundation expenses in 2013. And we haven't even examined other spending categories like employee fringe benefits $3.7 million, IT costs $2.1 million, rent $4 million, or conferences and conventions $9.2 million. Yet, the tax-exempt organization claimed in its tweet that no more than 12% of its expenditures went to these overhead expenses. How can both claims be true? Easy. They're not. The claim from the Clinton Foundation that 88% of all expenditures go directly to life-changing work is demonstrably false. Office chairs do not directly save lives. The internet connection for the group's headquarters does not directly change lives. Clinton Foundation overhead 2013 $990. But what if those employees and those ID costs and those travel expenses indirectly save lives? You might ask. Sure, it's overhead. But what if it's overhead in the service of a larger mission? Fair question. Even using the broadest definition of program expenses possible. However, the 88% claim is still false. How do we know? Because the IRS 990 forms submitted by the Clinton Foundation include a specific and detailed accounting of these programmatic expenses. And even using extremely broad definitions that allow office supplies, rent, travel, and ID costs to be counted as programmatic costs, the Clinton Foundation fails its own test. According to 2013 tax forms filed by the Clinton Foundation, the mere 80% of the organization's expenditures were characterized as functional programmatic expenses. That's a far cry from the 88% claimed by the organization just last week. Clinton Foundation Programmatic Breakdown 2013. If you take a narrower and more realistic view of the tax-exempt group's expenditures by excluding obvious overhead expenses and focusing on direct grants to charities and governments, the numbers look much worse. In 2013, for example, only 10% of the Clinton Foundation's expenditures were for direct charitable grants. The amount it spent on charitable grants, $8.8 million, was dwarfed by the $17.2 million it cumulatively spent on travel, rent, and office supplies. Between 2011 and 2013, the organization spent only 9.9% of the $252 million it collected on direct charitable grants. While some may claim that the Clinton Foundation does its charity by itself, rather than outsourcing to other organizations in the form of grants, there appears to be little evidence of that activity in 2013. In 2008, for example, the Clinton Foundation spent nearly $100 million purchasing and distributing medicine and working with its care partners. In 2009, the organization spent $126 million on pharmaceutical and care partner expenses. By 2011, those activities were virtually non-existent. The group spent nothing on pharmaceutical expenses and only $1.2 million on care partner expenses. In 2012 and 2013, the Clinton Foundation spent $0. In just a few short years, the Clintons' primary philanthropic project transitioned from a massive player in global pharmaceutical distribution to a bloated travel agency and conference organizing business that just happened to be tax-exempt. The Clinton Foundation announced last week that it would be refiling its tax returns for the last 5 years because it had improperly failed to disclose millions of dollars in donations from foreign sources while Hillary Clinton was serving as Secretary of State.
See, these are things that made us upset, that people who support the Clintons supported the Clintons, and we would say, look, this is the reason why we don't support the Clintons. They pile on or they give away weapons, sell weapons based on pay to play, like I just pointed out, and then the Clinton Foundation is supposed to be all good and holy and doing all kinds of good things for people. Well, in 2013, the Clinton Foundation only spent 10% of its budget on charitable grants. And I think I will take both of these and insert them into my conversation here, so you can hear them in full. And I'm not going to read them all out, so I'll do like I do and put them in. I'll put both of these in. I mean, they're interesting posts, right? So you might want to hear them all the way through. And I say, I know shill is a shill because of overwhelming evidence and personal experience. So when I see a post that says so, I don't need to check the source or the facts anymore. At this point, it's just come down to getting the message out to as many people as possible that shill is a shill. All I'm saying is I know the Clintons are members of the oligarchy now, and I know they have had to lead bad lives to get there. If I if I err to the right as an error at times where they are concerned, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. And I don't know what I was so Ethan Turner said Rush Limbaugh says foundation spends 15% on charity. Yeah, I wouldn't really go with Rush Limbaugh. PolitiFact Fact check says, where does Clinton money go? And then Ethan Turner says the Republicans have insulated Clinton to a large extent against all criticism by spreading falsehoods about her. There are many legitimate reasons why Clinton is a totally unacceptable candidate. Let's be responsible and credible in our arguments. Well, the argument about the Clinton Foundation became settled after that, and there's plenty there. You know, there's no doubt about the Clinton Foundation. I mean, it even went mainstream. If it can go mainstream, then it's beyond the pale, right? At old posts in my group, We the People, formerly Hillary, the scourge of the Democratic Party, and Terry James posted this one. It's fast becoming apparent that more and more people are getting behind Bernie Sanders since he is running as a Democrat. His supporters are not going to cause a Republican defeat. Only the DNC could do so by stubbornly insisting on pushing Hillary on a voter base that doesn't want her. If the Democratic Party alienates its own base, pushes forward with Hillary, and a Republican wins, then make no mistake about it, the DNC will be the one to blame, not the voters who wanted Bernie Sanders. So, I mean, this is Halloween 2015, October 31st, 2015. You know, everybody, you know, the vote was in. Everybody flipped their cards. We were trying all the way back then, right? So they had like a year and a quarter to figure out how to beat Donald Trump, and that was with this guy. And just like it says right there, stubborn. Stubborn. They're so fucking stubborn, man. And all that stuff that they said proves that they're stubborn. It's her turn. I mean, what are we, in 5th grade? You know? We did everything we could to try and get them to see the light. These old posts, I don't even know if the links will be any good on a lot of them. Even a year and a half old, and a lot of the posts are no good. I mean, look how long it's taken this one to come up. Usually my stuff just pops right up.
I am who I am, and what I believe in, and what my spirituality is about, is that we're all in this together. That I think it is not a good thing to believe that as human beings we can turn our backs on the suffering of other people. That we should not be living. And this is not Judaism, this is what Pope Francis is talking about, that we cannot worship just billionaires in the making of more and more money. Life is more than that. That we are living in a nation today which has seen a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, massive income and wealth inequality. And you know what? We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. We are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. The only country that doesn't have paid family and medical leave. Many other countries are providing free tuition in their public colleges and universities. So essentially what I think is we do best as human beings. We fulfill our lives when we work together rather than say, hey, I want it all, and I don't care about the hungry kid down the street. I don't think that's what America should be about.
And so the reason that I'm still producing segments is because as of this moment, it looks to me like 2020 is just going to be a repeat of 2016, and I mean, at this moment, there's still the next nomination to deal with, and you can see here that a year and I mean, I can guarantee you a year and a half, even more, before the convention, we were fighting about Bernie. So it's the end of 2017, let's just call it 2018 right now. So 2018, 2019, 2020, so it's just 3 years away, and I can tell you I'm already fighting. I'm already fighting for Bernie, I'm already supporting Bernie, I'm already backing Bernie. I'm still doing Bernie t-shirts, and I was, if not the first, one of the first to suggest Feel the Burn. It was in a group that had over 250,000 members and was called Bernie Sanders for President 2016 or whatever. Bernie for President, I don't know what it was. It was the biggest Bernie group, and they had a post that said, what would you suggest as a campaign slogan? And I was like, The first one I came up with was too much like, and I didn't post it, it was too much like Obama's change whatever. And they ended up, or no, I did post it. I posted a couple of different slogans, but very quickly I came up with Feel the Burn almost as a joke, and everybody picked up on it. Everybody was like, feel the burn, feel the burn. So everybody, it was kind of like voting, you know. So that's the first time I ever heard of Feel the Burn. I did what I always do. I go to Google and I open it up and I post the term, and there was no such thing. On Google anyway. I don't know that that proves anything. Anyway, so I pushed Feel the Burn, Feel the Burn. Didn't see a lot of response for a while, maybe a month, and then all of a sudden it took off. So I'm glad to be, you know, I'm not going to lay claim to Feel the Burn because I think it's such an obvious thing. I think somebody would have come up with it. I don't know that it was actually me that was first. I mean, I was first for me. I came up with it first in my life, you know, in my reality. And I'll show you my Feel the Burn t-shirts. You know, I'm not rich, so I don't have a lot of money. I'm working on getting some screen printing together, but for now, all I can do is make them with bleach out dark shirts. And well, I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so here's one that's finished, hanging up in my closet. Just took it out, and it's kind of, it's not really flat. And I used to put little things here to make the, but you know, you can read it without them. And as within everything in my life, time is a factor. So I just make them like this. I think people get the point. Feel the burn. I use, and it's just a excess plastic, just stuff that was on binders that were falling apart, and I took the plastic and cut it out to make this thing. Put tape all over one side to make it stronger, because I want it to last. I don't want to These things are hard to make. It takes a long time. And I'm going to use them for fabric painting. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet. So I'll show you exactly what I do. There's really no place for me to set the camera. So I'll turn it off. All I'm going to do is take a shirt and mount it on this thing. It's just an old cutting board for cutting meat and vegetables and stuff. Okay, get it kind of squared up, and then just lay this down on top of it, and I fill something up with some hot water to put it in after I'm done. And now I'm going to try and do this one-handed. All this one. So here I've got my bleach in an old cottage cheese container. And like I say, you want to get it as squared up as possible. The first one that I made was like way over on one side. When I'm in public, people are like looking at me like, what in the world does that say? I even had some guy go, he was staring at me and I gave him a funny look and he said, trying to figure out what your t-shirt said. Well, I had it on backwards. Inside out, I mean. Which I want to do. And by the way, this is, I'll be putting this, as a matter of fact, I don't want to put Feel the Burn on the front of any of my t-shirts. I'm going to put them on the back. So I'm going to take this, turn it around, and put Feel the Burn on the back, because this is the front. And I'm going to start putting Reboot Democrats. So it'll be the donkey in the middle with dirt coming up from the back on the front, and then it'll say Reboot and Democrats across the bottom, because I want to start promoting my Reboot Democrats. It's far more important even than Bernie, although Bernie, no, neither one of them is more important than the other. I mean, Bernie's important, or whoever we choose is important to the future of the movement. But Reboot is the answer. So whether people want to like it or not, you know. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and put the donkey on the front here, and then we'll flip it over. These I made a little bit differently. What I did was I printed them out. So this is a printout actually, and then put plastic on this side, 8.5 by 11 sheets of plastic on this side. And I've already done this once, and that's why I put sticky. I put basting, quilting, basting. My mother's a quilter, so I have all kinds of stuff around for that. Basting. Now, you don't want to get your sponge. What you want to do is just just get it nice and wet. Maybe a little extra just on it. Put it in the middle and you'll see the material get wet. See how it's wet? You can see it's wet when it's wet. So And you can just experiment. I don't know what's best. You know, sometimes some ways are better than others. I would say get it all wet like this. Bring your bleach back out into your bleach, and then take it off. And just let it go. I'll take a sprayer at some point with bleach in it and spray it off in this direction to give it the dirt kicking effect. As a matter of fact, I've got something that's mostly bleach right now. So I'll take it and just kind of like that. Now, my bleach isn't real good, so, but hopefully that'll work. If not, I'll come back and do it again. I'll keep on doing it until I get it right. Okay, and I think you can figure out, once you see it, what I'm doing. So I straightened out the back, maybe straighten out, get all the wrinkles out of it, all the ripples and stuff that are, get it as flat as you can. And then we'll put back Feel the Burn, which also has basting on the back, but it's kind of wore out. Now this is a little harder, right, because it's so big, but I'm going to pull it down a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, we're Bernie crats. We don't really believe in wasting time trying to get a perfection that's you're probably never going to get anyway, right? And I'm working on the Reboot Democrat letters, but it takes a while to cut them out. So I'll show that to you maybe next time, huh? So here comes Feel the Burn. Try to lap up the excess. So just go over it like this with the sponge, and you know, you can use a spray bottle or whatever, but I find that if you leave chlorine in a spray bottle, it ruins the sprayer. I mean, it doesn't last very long. Okay, so just try and get it soaked in a little bit, try and get the excess off. And I think once you get it all in, you can just lift this thing off. So I'm going to try to and then you can just leave it for a while, and I'll come back and we'll look at this before I put it in the water. And there's no perfect way of doing this, just try not to get it on so thick that it spreads out across the cloth. and ruins your lettering. Just trying. I think it's pretty obvious what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get the chlorine, the bleach, into the lettering, right? Try and clean it up, and use it all in the lettering. And I think I got it all pretty good. Now we just have to leave it and then put it in the water. Waste not, want not. So I'll just leave everything like that. Obviously it hasn't done much in the way of bleaching yet, but hopefully if I leave it on long enough, I mean, you've seen the finished one, so you know it can be done. Meme that I made back in the days of the battles. If you don't plan on voting for Hillary Clinton, come join us. You notice that the old name is Hillary. And that's because the group was called Hillary, the scourge of the fake, in quotation or parentheses or whatever, the round things that go around them. I'm not sure what they're. I don't think they're called a parentheses or a. Anyway, and this is apparently a quote from Bernie Sanders. It's not negative to be talking about differences of opinions. And, you know, what I got tired of was always having to defend myself from all these things that not only Hillary, but her trolls would say about us. I mean, it was nonstop, right? Things like that, like we were being negative because we believed in what is right. You know, that they would take that and turn it into we're being negative. Oh, we're being negative about what a fuckhead Hillary Clinton is and her hill trolls. So here's a quote from Ralph Nader, a deep corporatist and a deep militarist. Ralph Nader, of course he's going to say that because he ran for the Green Party, and everybody blames him for Al Gore losing, when really the reason Al Gore lost was because of the Clintons. And somebody down here writes, and a thorough bag of douche. And I wrote, yuck. More evidence cited in RICO case against the Clintons. A Washington watchdog suing Bill and Hillary Clinton and their foundation under the Federal Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act is urging a federal court in Florida that has already scheduled a trial to immediately take.
More evidence cited in RICO case against Clinton's lawyer filed supplement with newly discovered information. Author Bob Undrew, a Washington watchdog suing Bill and Hillary Clinton and their foundation under the Federal Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is urging the federal court in Florida that already is scheduled a trial to immediately take physical custody of Hillary Clinton's private email server. In a supplement to his recent motion to the court to have the unit seized, Attorney Larry Klayman of Freedom Watch notes that there is new relevant information to bolster his case. Klayman submitted copies of a Washington Times report that the Clintons' foundation set up a fundraising arm in Sweden that collected $26 million in donations at the same time that country was lobbying Hillary Rodham Clinton's State Department to forego sanctions that threatened its thriving business with Iran. Further, another article submitted by Klayman, from the Miami Herald, reported banks were paying huge fees to Bill Clinton for speeches at a delicate time. Many of the speeches and donations were made at times when the host banks were under Justice Department scrutiny. All told, the same 11 banks have paid more than $81 billion, yes, that's with a B, over the last 6 years to resolve federal investigations into alleged corruption, the report said. You don't have to wonder about Hillary Clinton any longer. Read her words for yourself in Hillary Unhinged. The case charges the Clintons schemed to reap hundreds of millions of dollars personally and for their foundation by selling government access and influence. The server needs to be obtained, Klayman said, because Hillary Clinton used it in place of the required government system for all her emails as Secretary of State, and it likely would contain documents pertinent to the allegations, Klayman said. Hillary Clinton has said the drive was wiped, but he noted there are processes to recover documents. The gravamen of the RICO enterprise consists largely of the two major predicate acts as pled in plaintiff's amended complaint, including defendant Hillary Clinton selling waivers to companies doing business in Iran while Secretary of State in exchange for donations for the Clinton Foundation and large speaking fees to her husband and later herself. The motion continues. It is these documents concerning the criminal enterprise which are likely to remain on Hillary Clinton's personal servers, Klayman wrote. In addition, documents concerning another major predicate act involve Hillary Clinton's release of classified information concerning Israeli war plans. He explained the details were released and were designed to thwart an Israeli preemptive strike to damage or destroy Iran's nuclear weapons capability by revealing Israeli strategic plans to forward base military operations. This is why the court must take custody of the defendant's email hard drives to preserve this material evidence, Klayman wrote. Defendants, in particular Hillary Clinton, destroyed emails which plaintiff had requested under the Freedom of Information Act, concerning her sale of waivers as Secretary of State to do business with the Islamic Republic of Iran and her participation principally in the criminal release of classified government information involving American and Israeli cyber warfare to destroy or severely cripple Iranian atomic centrifuges, and also the release to New York Times reporter David Sanger of classified Israeli war plans to wage a preemptive air attack to eliminate Iranian nuclear facilities, he said. WND previously reported the federal judge in Florida scheduled a trial for January for the case charging the Clintons with RICO violations. Klayman, for years a Washington watchdog, engaged Bill Clinton in court battles during his presidency. Klayman also has taken on terror interests and foreign influences in the United States. Recently, he won a federal court judgment against the National Security Agency's Spy on Americans program and brought a case against Obama over his amnesty by executive memo strategy. WND's attempts to obtain a comment from the New York office for Bill Clinton or the foundation have not been successful. The order setting the case for trial comes from Judge Donald M. Middlebrooks, U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of Florida in West Palm Beach. Claimant told W&E that it's time for the Clintons finally to be held legally accountable. He alleges their criminal enterprise dates back at least 10 years. When the Clintons left the White House in 2000, they were broke, Hillary Clinton has claimed. Estimates are that since that time, they have been paid well over $100 million, oftentimes in $250,000 and $500,000 increments for speaking. Speaking fees for Bill Clinton have been as high as $750,000. The Clintons Foundation also has been embroiled in scandal recently, with foreign governments making donations to the Clinton-controlled organization during Hillary Clinton's tenure as a senior government official. Plaintiff sues the defendants, as individuals operating the criminal enterprise, for violating plaintiff's statutory rights to obtain documents under the Freedom of Information Act, for violating plaintiff's due process rights, vested property rights, constitutional rights, and for misappropriating property, the filing says. The complaint explains, plaintiff has filed many Freedom of Information Act requests for public records created or held by the U.S. Department of State, which records are of the public interest and importance to the citizens of the United States. As it has now been revealed, the primary reason that the plaintiff did not receive the records to which the plaintiff is entitled by law is that defendant Hillary Clinton, upon information and belief together with Cheryl Mills and defendant Bill Clinton and other Clinton loyalists, set up a private computer file server operating a private, stand-alone electronic mail system. It alleges Clinton's off-the-books plan concealed from the plaintiff public records to which the plaintiff was entitled to under the FOIA Act. It continues, using those concealed communications held on the private email server, upon information and belief, the defendants negotiated, arranged and implemented the sale of influence and access to U.S. government officials and decision-makers and official acts by state and other instrumentalities of the U.S. government in return for gratuitous and illegal payments, bribes, disguised as donations to defendant the Clinton Foundation, and extraordinarily high speaking fees paid to defendant Bill Clinton and defendant Hillary Clinton.
Interest in Libya in 2012.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me.
Only time I got on the internet, I did 2 emails, and I ordered Christmas presents from a reservation. Otherwise, I found people said embarrassing things on emails. I didn't want to be one of them.
I mean, and how many angels dance on the head of a pin? I have really nothing to. I mean, how do you answer that?
Represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007 before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes. Quit engaging in these kinds of speculative behaviors.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Home buyers who paid extra fees to avoid documenting their income should have known they were getting in over their heads.
Of course we have to deal with the problem that the banks are still too big to fail. We can never let the American taxpayer and middle-class families ever have to bail out the kind of speculative behavior that we saw. But we also have to worry about some of the other players. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank. There's this whole area called shadow banking. That's where the experts tell me the next potential problem could come from. So I'm with both Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley in putting a lot of attention. I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
9/11 was bad.